Hey, it's Mike Monday here with your almost daily dose of information, inspiration and insight to get you motoring in the studio and out of it. So today I'm going to answer a question about what do you do when you lose the inspiration on something you thought was good, or when you don't think something is good enough, because it is a waste of time, isn't it, finishing rubbish? Of course it is. But maybe it's not quite so simple. But before I answer the question, I've got a new set of tools for you to download, which will help you finish much more music, which, as you'll see from what I'm about to say, can actually be incredibly helpful. It's called the 7 Top Tools for Massive Music Momentum, and the tools aren't exactly what you think. So to get them, go to mikemonday.com/7 top tools, and when you get the download, there's another little free surprise on the other side if you want to sign up for that. So, getting on to the question, and this is from one of our YouTube friends, Dom Biscuit, because I'm posting these videos after I do them onto YouTube as well. And Dom Biscuit says, hey Mike, I have a question. Sometimes I have a brilliant bassist 16-bar loop of a song. I arrange it and halfway through lose the inspiration, although I still feel it has potential. If I finish it, as you would suggest, I would feel I've completely ballsed up the good idea, sheerly for the fast sake of finishing it. What's the remedy to make a good idea a song? Do I finish it anyway and just accept the good idea is just a mediocre song? So, why would you finish something if you lose the inspiration on it? What does getting it over a line, and yes, that line is often arbitrary. I think it was it Michelangelo or Leonardo da Vinci that said, art is never finished, only abandoned, and I completely subscribe to that. But what does deciding, just going, okay, I'm done with this is finished, do? Well, in the question, Dom, you say, I arrange it and halfway through lose inspiration, although I still feel it has potential. If I finish it as you would suggest, I would feel I've completely ballsed up a good idea. So the assumption embedded in your question is that if you lose inspiration, or if you feel you don't like it, then that is correct. That your thoughts and your feelings at any given moment are correct. They are an objective view of reality. And I can promise you that is not the case. They are a data point you want to take into account, of course. I mean, what else are we going to do? We're music producers, we have to take into account something, but believing your thoughts in the moment is completely 100% believing them and using them, your thoughts and your feelings in your moment about the music, is actually a mistake. And one of the things you develop as you get more experience in creating anything is this ability to understand that those feelings are often not true exactly. I mean, I'll give you an example. I made a tune called Tooting Warrior, and it ended up being, financially anyway, one of my most successful tunes. It was licensed to all sorts of things. It did really, really well. It was like an absolutely huge tune in my little kind of area of the music industry. And I thought it was rubbish. I thought it was pretty terrible. I didn't like it very much. I thought it wasn't finished. And luckily I had a group of people who I actually played music to while I was there, you know, in person. There's only about like 5 people: my wife, my manager, one of the guys who owned the label I did stuff with, I think my agent, you know, and I was very close to them, so I could put what they thought of the music through the lens of what I knew about them, what mood they were in, all of that kind of stuff. And my partner in my label said, this is great, this is finished, you just need to finish. And I just didn't believe him. But I mean, my initial reaction was not to believe him, because I had these thoughts and these feelings about this track. And luckily, I knew myself, and I knew the kind of way that the creative process works enough to believe him over me, the producer. One of the things you will learn as you release more music is that what you think people are going to think, and the actual quality of your music, is actually not particularly true. I mean, occasionally it does happen. You make something, you think it's great, and everyone else thinks it's great. Wonderful. But that is very, very rare. Usually what happens is you'll have like an A side and a B side, and you think everyone's going to love the A side, and then everyone comes back and goes, the A side, whatever. The B side is brilliant. It happens time and time again. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So don't. First point, if you feel you've lost inspiration for a track and that means it's not good, don't believe it so much. Okay, so that's the first point. Develop that ability just to kind of move forward even though you're not feeling it. Those thoughts and feelings are happening for all kinds of different reasons. Like, there are loads of different reasons you're getting those thoughts and feelings. Maybe you had a bad dream which you don't remember. Maybe you had an argument with your girlfriend or your boyfriend. Maybe you're hungry. Maybe you're bored of the tune. You've been working on it too long. There's thousands of different reasons for this. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second reason you might want to think about finishing something you don't think is good enough or you're lost inspiration for is that the act of deciding that it is done, or deciding that you have got it to a point, or that you are abandoning it, or that you're finishing it, gives you a different relationship to that piece of music that you will never get unless you make that decision to put a line under it. It's like you're suddenly able to be more objective about it. It means you're much clearer and about that music, and you can learn from the experience, which then means that you can grow as a music producer. It allows you to grow as a music producer. If you never finish these things, then you don't get that perspective, which can only happen when you decide. It's done. It's weird. It's kind of almost, it feels very mysterious. But when you've put something down, you record it and you say, right, that's done. You listen to it. Even if you hate it, you then have the ability to learn from it in a way you wouldn't. I call it the special magic in finishing music. Okay, so that's the second reason. The third is the actual process of finishing. So you got to a point with a 16-bar loop and you start arranging it and you loved it at that 16-bar loop. But then you kind of lose in the middle of the inspiration, right? But actually going through the process of finishing, all the different things you have to do, maybe mixing, maybe sort of adding the love or the fancy bits, will often bring about another inspiration, another idea that you never would have got without going through the entire process. I have lost count of the number of times when I was finishing a piece of music and I was like literally putting the final touches, and all of a sudden this idea would come out of the blue, which never would have happened had I not gone through the process of finishing. And yes, that process of finishing often was quite humdrum. I was like, oh, what is the point? I'm not into this. But I went through it knowing that at some point it would hit me again. Not believing those feelings, not believing those thoughts. At some point I thought this was great. I mean, even you yourself say, Dom, although I still feel it has potential. At some point, I mean, how can you be sure what you're feeling now is right and not what you were feeling before? You can't go through life thinking that everything you think and feel at every single moment is correct, because often your opinions will change. If they didn't, you'd still believe in Father Christmas, right? So, you don't get this inspiration unless you go through the whole process. And, kind of similar to that, if you go through the whole process, you are actually practicing the whole process, which is a really big benefit as well. The fourth one is what I call the numbers game. And the best way I can put this is take producer A and producer B. They both have exactly the same equipment, exactly the same skills. They are essentially exactly the same person. Producer A finishes one track in 1 year. Producer B finishes 100 tracks in 1 year, many of which he doesn't like, okay? He or she, let's say. So, which one would have more bad music, producer A or producer B? Producer B would definitely, well, almost definitely have more bad music. Maybe he has 50 bad tunes. But which one would have more good music? Oh, yes, it's producer B, isn't it? Which one would have grown more as a producer, who would have learnt more as a producer, would be a better producer for that year if you'd have finished 100 tunes or one? Producer B. Which one would be more fulfilled? Producer B. Which one would have more momentum, which I'm about to talk about? Producer B. Which one would have many more opportunities to connect with other people in the industry? Producer B, the more you like finishing music, getting as much stuff done as possible in pretty much every... Yes, producer B would have more bad music. There is no doubt about it. But no one has to hear that music, do they? So, there's another reason. The fifth reason is, if you get into a finishing habit, you start to get better at finishing and you start to make better music. It's just like you get more practiced at finishing music and you make better music. You make more better music. The finishing habit, if you are in a starting but not finishing habit, you're in a very difficult position. So get yourself into a finishing habit and get yourself into that kind of practice of assuming you're going to finish most of what you make, because this, and this is the sixth reason, builds your momentum. When you finish a lot, whether you like it or not, it starts to build your confidence. You get more ideas. The more ideas you put into practice, you actually finish, the more ideas you will have in the future, the more options open up for you, the more used to actually sorting through those options and still moving forward you get. You don't get that feeling that nothing is working, that everything's at a dead end, even if most of what you finish you don't much like. Now, I've given a pretty compelling argument, I believe, for finishing most of the music that you start, even the stuff that you don't much like. But there is one thing I really want to stress. There's one kind of caveat I want to put onto this. If you get to, and this will often happen, I'm sure, if you get to a point with a piece of music where it's completely destroying your momentum, where you're kind of stuck for sessions upon sessions, that may well be a time to move it into your sketchbook. And by the way, the sketchbook is one of the tools in the 7 top tools. Move it into your sketchbook, put your momentum first, and move on. Okay, so if you are in that situation, that might be a case where you need to move on. Having said that though, the other option, and this is the one I used to do, was just finish it as fast as possible. If I felt myself getting stuck, just finish it as fast as possible. No one needs to hear it. Literally, make sure that it's not going to make people's ears bleed, or that they're going to have an involuntary bowel movement when they hear it, and finish it, put it in the sketchbook. Then you still maintain that momentum. So I hope that gives you a different perspective on finishing. Don't believe your good self so much at every moment. You're not always right. The way you feel about the music isn't the only measure of that music's quality. Just think of the number of times you've changed your opinion about anything. Think of the number of times you've been wrong, and accept that as the producer, ironically and kind of counterintuitively, as the producer, you are not actually in the best position always to judge its quality. So that's it for this week. In fact, I'll be back on Monday. It's Friday here in Australia. And don't forget, I've got a new tool you can download, or set of tools, the 7 top tools for massive music momentum. They will help you finish more of this music, help you develop that different relationship to the music where you're not so lost in it and kind of thinking, oh, this is terrible, I can't finish anything. Just use these tools, put them into practice. You can get them at mikemonday.com/7 top tools. And if you found this useful, please share it. If there's somebody you know who might benefit from it, tag them, or just go the old-fashioned way and tell them about it. So, until next time, onwards and upwards, and make sure you finish something.